Okay, now I'm going to talk about Chapter 6 of Future of an Illusion. And Chapter 6 is very important because it's in Chapter 6 that Freud will introduce the distinction between, well, he'll tell you what he means by illusion. The title of the book is The Future of an Illusion. And so finally, in Chapter 6, Freud tells us what he means by an illusion. And it turns out that what he means by an illusion is not what most people mean by an illusion. Chapter 5 dealt with this distinction between science and religion. And science is basically, for Freud, the distinction between science and religion is that science is based upon evidence and religion is based upon faith. Freud himself sees himself on the side of science. He actually created a psychoanalysis, and he thought of psychoanalysis as a science of psychology. After I, finished with all my description or explanation of future of illusion, I'll talk about some criticisms of Freud. But at this point, we'll just leave it at that. For Freud, science is the standard, and Freud saw himself as a scientist, and he saw psychoanalysis as a science. He thought he had created a science. In Chapter 6, Freud tells us what an illusion is. And the reason that's important is because Freud is going to come to the conclusion that religion is an illusion. So we need to be very clear as to what that means. He's not saying it's a delusion, and he's not saying it's an error. He's saying it's an illusion. At the end of Chapter 5, Freud had distinguished between science and religion, and he concluded that religion has no evidence in its favor. When you check the claims out, they don't hold up. And people believe simply out of faith. And Freud finds that a problem. He thinks that's a big psychological problem. Because he says when it comes to what is most important in life, our ultimate question of what it means to exist, what happens after death, and so on. He says people believe things that in ordinary life they wouldn't believe. I mean, in ordinary everyday life, we check things out. But he says when it comes to religion, we believe things that we can't check out. And he finds that he wants to know why that is the case. In Chapter 6, he will give his answer. His answer is that religion is an illusion. And what does that mean? What is an illusion for Freud? For Freud distinguishes between an illusion and what he calls error. And the difference between an illusion and error is that an error is simply a mistake. An error is something, you're wrong about something. An error is simply you're wrong. If you think that the Earth is at the center of the solar system, that's an error. It's wrong. It's factually wrong. An illusion for Freud is not simply that you're wrong about something, but it's the reason why you were wrong. For Freud, when you believe something because you wish it to be true, if you believe anything the reason you believe it is not because of the evidence. It's not that the evidence is compelling to you. I believe right now that there's a pen. I'm holding a pen in my hand. The reason I believe that is I could see it. I can touch it, right? And Freud says that's what science always wants to go back to, evidence. No matter how complicated the theory becomes, quantum physics or whatever it is, ultimately it's got to be traced back to things that are rooted in empirical evidence. Freud says religion is not that way. Religion for Freud is based upon wish fulfillment. It's upon what you wish to be the case. So anything that you believe because you wish it to be the case, for Freud, is an illusion. If that's the primary reason you believe it, that is an illusion. An error is when you believe something that is not true, but you don't believe it because you wish it to be that way. It's just you made a mistake. Now, so an error for Freud is false. It's something that is false. But notice his definition of illusion. Illusion is anything that you believe because you wish it to be so. Now, Freud is not saying anything about truth and falsity. Freud is not saying that illusions are false. In fact, many illusions are true. Because often when you believe something because you wish it to be true and there really is no good evidence that it is true, sometimes you're just lucky. For example, let's say I have a friend and my friend says, Fridays, and let's say Fridays there's going to be a big lottery, right? My friend says, and my friend starts going out and charging all this money on his credit card. And I say, why are you charging all this money on your credit card? And he says, well, because Friday I'm going to be a multimillionaire on Friday. I say, really? He says, yeah, because I'm going to win the lottery on Friday. And I say, you're going to win the lottery on Friday? And he tells me, he says, yeah, and he's got this, he can read the future. Now, it's obvious that that's wishful thinking. He has no evidence that he's going to win the lottery on Friday and become a multimillionaire. That Freud would call that an illusion. He's under the illusion that he will win the lottery. Now, let's say on Friday they have the lottery and he actually does win. His ticket is the winner. Now, it's very unlikely, but it could happen. So actually he was correct. When he was buying all the stuff on his credit card, he told me he's going to be a multimillionaire on Friday, and actually he was. He did win the lottery. Freud would say that his belief on Tuesday that he was going to win the lottery on Friday, even though it turned out to be true, was still an illusion, even though it was true. And it was illusion because his belief wasn't based on any evidence. It was just based upon wishful thinking. So when Freud says something is an illusion, he's not talking about whether it's true or false. He's talking about the psychological motivation behind the belief. And any belief which is held primarily because you want it to be the case is an illusion. Now, since illusions are not based on evidence, the probability is that they will turn out to be false. They may turn out to be true, but it's very unlikely. So it's very probable that any illusion that you have, any belief based upon an illusion, is probably false. But it might turn out to be true. So Freud's view is this. It turns out, for example, that God does exist. Let's say Christians and Jews were right. God does exist. There is the God of Christianity and Judaism. Now, what would Freud say about that if Christianity and Judaism are right? Freud would still say that the belief in God that people had or have is still an illusion because it's based upon wishful thinking. The evidence is not there. And one of the things that Freud said that really impresses Freud is that he believes that a lot of things that happen in life actually contradict the idea of a loving God, primarily the problem of evil. If God is loving and all powerful, how do you explain all the evil in the world? without resorting to mystery. And again, you can come up with scenarios to justify any belief you want, but Freud was saying just prima facie, and just looking at the evidence, it looks like there's a big contradiction between the idea of a loving God and the evil in the world. So Freud says the burden of proof is on the part of those who are making that claim. So anyway, so an illusion is based upon primarily wishful thinking for Freud, and errors simply are mistakes. Now, Freud distinguishes also between. Now, I should say one thing too. Freud is saying that an illusion is anything based upon wishful thinking. That is not the ordinary sense of the word. Usually, people mean by an illusions, like let's say you're driving down the road and it looks like there's water in front of you. It's just a mirage. That's illusions are things that they seem to be there, but they turn out not to be there. Like a rainbow, often people say the rainbow's an illusion because it looks like there's something there, but when you get up closer, it vanishes. So illusions are often ghosts or illusions. So the way we use the word illusion in ordinary life is not the way Freud is using it. For Freud, an illusion is anything based upon wishful thinking. Okay, so the title of the book, The Future of an Illusion, anybody seeing that title without reading what Freud says in chapter 6 does not have any clue as to what Freud means by illusion. In chapter 6, he tells you specifically. Okay, so that, and then he makes a distinction between illusion and delusion. An illusion and a delusion are similar in that they are both based upon wishful thinking. The distinction between an illusion and a delusion is that delusions, like errors, are false. Delusions for Freud are simply crazy ideas that cannot be true. Illusions, on the other hand, may turn out to be true, but probably not. But delusions are not going to there's no chance that they're going to turn out to be true. If you go to a mental hospital and you see, you go to mental hospitals, there are people, they think they're Jesus. They think they're Napoleon. They think they're Bob Dylan. They think they're Julius Caesar. Some people think they're God. These people are deluded, and their belief simply contradicts reality. That's what a delusion is. Now, Freud, it's very interesting that the title of the book is not The Future of a Delusion. It's called The Future of an Illusion. Now, Freud actually did believe that many religious doctrines were probably delusional. But in this book, he's not making that claim. He's making the softer claim that religion is an illusion, not a delusion. It's based upon wishful thinking. Okay, that's basically his big point in chapter 6. Illusion, delusion, error, the distinction between illusion, delusion, and error. And at the end of chapter 6, he repeats his claim that he's not dealing with the truth value of religious doctrines. He's not getting into the question of whether religious ideas are true or false. One thing that's interesting about this book, Freud says nothing whatsoever. He doesn't even mention any of the philosophical proofs that people have put forth to prove that God exists. Descartes, Leibniz, Anselm, Immanuel Kant, many philosophers, brilliant minds, have actually tried to use the reason alone to show that God exists. Freud doesn't even get into that debate at all. He's approaching it simply from a psychological perspective. And what Freud believes is that really the real reason why people believe in the God of Christianity and Judaism is because this is a God of love, a God of compassion, a God who will take care of all the injustice and the evil in the world. And Freud believes that is basically wishful thinking. It's basically a child, needing comfort, comfort in face of the mysteries of the dangers of life, of nature. And Freud believes that religion is wishful thinking. I mean, that's his complete assessment of it, and that's why he's a very strict, adamant atheist. He doesn't give religion any chance of being true. Anyway, I'll continue this. Continue this in my next lecture.